The 1990s were a golden decade for cinema. Tarantino changed the rules, independent film exploded, and Hollywood learned how to turn art into industry. But beneath the blockbusters and Oscars, a quieter kind of greatness was happening films that didn't fit in, that were too slow, too strange, or simply too honest for their time. These are the movies that slipped through the cracks, forgotten, misunderstood, or overshadowed by bigger names, yet each one carries something timeless truth, emotion, and a kind of cinematic courage we rarely see today. These are 10 forgotten 90s movies you'll wish you'd seen sooner. Lone Star, 1996. John Sayles was never a studio man. His films were slow burns, political, human, layered like novels. In Lone Star, he turned a Texas border town into a metaphor for America itself. A sheriff investigates an old murder and uncovers generations of buried secrets. It's part mystery, part historical reckoning, but at its core, it's about how the past never really dies, it just gets rewritten. Chris Cooper gives one of his finest performances, and Sayles' direction is patient and poetic. Released in the middle of a decade obsessed with spectacle, Lone Star asked audiences to listen instead of react. It earned critical acclaim, but audiences stayed away. Today it feels like an American classic waiting to be rediscovered, a film about identity, memory, and the quiet ghosts that shape us. The Sweet Hereafter, 1997. In the late 90s, while studios chased action and CGI, Adam McGoyan made a film about grief. The Sweet Hereafter opens with a bus crash that kills almost every child in a small Canadian town. What follows isn't melodrama. It's an autopsy of sorrow. Ian Holm plays a lawyer trying to turn tragedy into a lawsuit, but he's also a father haunted by his own failures. The film moves like memory, nonlinear, haunting, quiet. Its stillness is its strength. Egan doesn't manipulate emotion. He lets it ache. Critics adored it. It won at Cannes, but in the age of Titanic, audiences wanted tears, not silence. Decades later, The Sweet Hereafter remains one of the most devastating meditations on loss ever filmed. The Apostle, 1997. Robert Duvall didn't just star in The Apostle. He wrote, directed, and financed it himself. Hollywood passed, so he mortgaged his own house to make it happen. The result is extraordinary, a portrait of a southern preacher who's both saint and sinner. When he commits a crime, he doesn't run from God, he runs toward him. It's raw, sweaty, and utterly human. Duvall's performance is volcanic, part charisma, part confession. The Apostle isn't about religion as much as redemption, how faith can save you even when you don't deserve saving. It was nominated for an Oscar, but its audience never came. Today it stands as proof that personal filmmaking can still exist in a corporate age, one man's gospel of grace and guilt. The Player, 1992. Before Hollywood began mocking itself, Robert Altman did it first and best. The Player is a black comedy about a studio executive who kills a writer and gets away with it. It's a movie about movies, cynical, self-aware, and dripping with insider venom. Tim Robbins is perfectly cast as the exec drowning in paranoia and ego. Cameos flood the screen. Everyone from Julia Roberts to Burt Reynolds plays themselves. Altman turns the entire industry into a crime scene. Released in 1992, The Player predicted everything wrong with modern Hollywood: test screenings, IP obsession, and moral bankruptcy dressed as art. It was acclaimed but quickly forgotten when Jurassic Park and Forrest Gump arrived. Watching it now feels prophetic, as if Altman saw the streaming era coming decades early. Safe, 1995. In Safe, Julianne Moore plays a suburban housewife allergic to the modern world. Literally. Her body begins rejecting chemicals, pollution, and eventually people. Directed by Todd Haynes, it's not horror, but it's more disturbing than most horror films. On the surface, it's about environmental illness. Underneath, it's a critique of consumer life. How we trade authenticity for comfort until even our air feels toxic. Moore delivers one of the most quietly terrifying performances of the 90s. Fragile, frightened, and fading. Safe barely played in theaters, but it's a masterwork of minimalism. The ending, ambiguous and cold, leaves you questioning whether the world is killing her or she's disappearing by choice. It's a film that lingers like a bad dream. A Perfect World, 1993. Before Kevin Costner became a blockbuster icon, he made a quiet, devastating masterpiece with Clint Eastwood. A Perfect World is a crime drama that isn't really about crime. It's about innocence, how it fades, and how we try to protect it. Costner plays Butch Haynes, an escaped convict who kidnaps a young boy, but instead of terror, we get tenderness. A bond forms between them. two souls searching for something pure in a corrupted world. Eastwood, directing with grace and restraint, turns what could have been a chase film into a meditation on morality. The movie underperformed at the box office, lost among flashier releases like Jurassic Park, but time has revealed its quiet brilliance. It's one of those rare films that makes you cry without asking you to. The Insider, 1999. At the end of the decade, Michael Mann gave us The Insider, a thriller built not on action, but on integrity. Russell Crowe plays Jeffrey Wigan, a scientist who exposes the tobacco industry. Al Pacino plays the journalist who helps him do it. There are no car chases, no gunfights, just men talking, deciding whether truth is worth the cost. Mann shoots offices like battlefields, and Crowe's performance is astonishing, quiet, wounded, and morally unshakable. It earned 7 Oscar nominations but lost to American Beauty. 2 decades later, The Insider feels even more urgent. A reminder that courage isn't loud, it's lonely. The Double Life of Véronique, 1991. Polish director Krzysztof Kieślowski created one of the most poetic films of the decade. The Double Life of Véronique tells the story of 2 women, one in Poland, one in France, who never meet but share an unexplainable spiritual connection. It's a film about identity, intuition, and the invisible strings that tie souls together. Elaine Jacob gives a luminous performance, and the cinematography is pure dream. American audiences barely saw it. Too meditative, too mysterious, but for those who found it, it's unforgettable. A film that feels like a memory you can't place, familiar, fragile, and fleeting. The Straight Story, 1999. When people think of David Lynch, they think of nightmares, but The Straight Story is his miracle. A film with no darkness, just light. Based on a true story, it follows an old man who drives a lawnmower across the Midwest to reconcile with his brother. That's it. No surrealism, no violence, just humanity. Lynch finds beauty in slowness, and Richard Farnsworth gives the performance of a lifetime. It was nominated for the Palme d'Or, but most audiences ignored it. Rewatch it now, and you'll see why it's one of the purest, most heartfelt films of the 1990s. Proof that even the strangest director can find grace. The Iron Giant, 1999. At the very end of the decade, animation gave us one of its greatest heartbreaks. Brad Bird's The Iron Giant is the story of a boy who befriends a giant robot during the Cold War. It's simple, beautiful, and devastating. A film about fear, friendship, and sacrifice, where Warner Brothers released it with almost no marketing, and it flopped. But over time, it became a legend, a reminder that courage isn't about strength, but compassion. Its final line, "You are who you choose to be," belongs on the Mount Rushmore of cinema quotes. A children's movie that speaks to every age, especially those who once believed the world could be kind. These films didn't make billions, they didn't dominate headlines or win box office weekends, but they mattered to the people who found them, who felt seen by them, who carried them quietly for decades. The 1990s weren't just about big budgets and bigger egos. They were about filmmakers daring to make something real. Stories that whisper instead of shout. If even one of these films finds a new viewer because of this video, then the work was worth it. Because some movies don't just entertain, they stay with you, shaping the way you see the world. This is Frame Time, where every frame has a story and every story deserves its time.